This basically is going to be an introduction to the latest, greatest version of AutoCAD. It's actually the 30th major release of AutoCAD. It's really going to be one of the last standalone perpetual licenses you'll ever purchase, as Harry alluded to. What's new is actually not much of anything. It's more really a fit and finish, as we refer to it. There's not really any one thing that is new, but there's a lot of updates to a lot of many existing commands. One thing that is not new is the drawing file type. That's something that AutoCAD or Autodesk has been, if you're familiar with the change in file format every 3 years, 2016 would be, the next DWG file format change. It's been a pattern that's been in place since 2004, and for whatever reason, Autodesk has decided to stay with the 2013 drawing format going forward into 2016. So no worries of upgrading to 2016 and worrying about whether your consultants or users from one side of the building to the other side of the building are all on the same release. If you're using a 2013-based product, you'll still be able to use 2016 without any backwards compatibility issues. So getting into the slides, I'm not going to bore you guys to death with a lot of pretty slides, but basically what I want to talk about or just mention is that the new features and improvements are going to fall into 5 categories: user interface, documentation, design, and BIM, building information modeling, as well as installation and configuration. So as we go through some of these slides, you'll see some topics that will all fit into those categories, as I mentioned. This slide here is pretty interesting because it does show the, some of the history with Autodesk and some of the major innovations that were incorporated into the new releases as they evolved. One of the big things with 2016 is that there is an improved PDF experience. We'll see some of that later on. You'll be able to take advantage of producing PDFs with bookmarks and layouts and layers and things of that nature that PDFs haven't always been able to do. Something else that's mentioned on this slide that is very interesting to me as a longtime member of the Autodesk User Group International, or AUGI. This particular version of AutoCAD incorporates a lot of user wish lists, so I'll be mentioning those as we go through. So one of the big things that Autodesk is basically showing as far as 2016 is concerned is an improvement in the overall visual graphics of the way AutoCAD drawings look. You can see some side-by-side comparisons here. We'll see this later, as part of the demo, where you'll be able to tell the difference very easily with the smoothness of circles and arcs and things of that nature. So it is an improvement in that regard. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of enhancements on the side of PDF with hyperlinking and being able to have embedded PDFs and embedded drawing file links and so forth. So we'll see a little bit of that later. As I mentioned also, as far as BIM, when it comes to coordination, most people, even if they're not using a BIM product, they've heard the acronym, they've heard the term, and they may have even heard of the program called Navisworks, which produces, which is basically a high-end viewing tool that allows, multiple different consultants and engineers and architects and so forth to pull all of their different files together in one format. But AutoCAD users had tended to be left out because unless it was, done in 3D, there was really no way to overlay some of these files. But the new version of AutoCAD does allow you to attach Navisworks files in a very similar way that you would attach an XREF or an image. So that's a nice feature that's been added in. Reality computing, I'm not sure how many people out there are actually using point clouds or even know what a point cloud is. You know, in very short terms, I mean, basically a point cloud is something that is created by a three-dimensional laser. So if you are, you know, in the surveying business, or if you have a lot of work that you're trying to do retrofit into an existing facility, you can either purchase a service of people who are specialized in this, and they can basically set up a scanner that will shoot a laser and create various different points and in 3 dimensions, obviously, that generate what's known as a point cloud. And point clouds can have millions, if not billions, of points that are generated during this scanning process. And it's been possible for a while now to actually bring point cloud files into AutoCAD drawings. A lot of people don't even realize that, but the way they're handled now inside of AutoCAD is much more user-friendly, and you're actually able to treat the point clouds more like AutoCAD objects, so you can pick and touch and manipulate a point cloud in ways that you've never been able to do before. So that's another nice feature. If you have been on the fence about possibly using point clouds, now is probably a good time to look at it a little closer. I think one of the nicest features or improvements to AutoCAD 2016 is the smart dimensioning. You know, if you've been using AutoCAD for a long time, you know that when it's time to generate dimensions, you know, you're having to pick a lot of various different tools, whether it's, you know, a linear or arc or a circular dimension. It's a different tool. Well, in 2016, basically you don't have to select a tool anymore. AutoCAD will basically create a dimension for you, or give you a preview of a dimension that it's going to create for you as you hover over different objects. So if you select over a line, you're going to see a linear dimension or possibly an align dimension pop up. If you hover over an arc or a circle, you'll see, you know, the appropriate dimensions pop up as well, and you can place them, you can modify them, and do various different things very quickly. That in itself is an improvement over the way AutoCAD dimensions have been in the past. But another nice feature is if you start creating continuous dimensions, or perhaps a baseline dimension, or if you have existing dimensions and you turn around and you place another dimension over an existing dimension, AutoCAD is smart enough to know that you don't want dimensions on top of each other, and it'll give you the opportunity to move those smart dimensions out of the way, or even break them into multiple dimensions or continuous dimensions, or even replace the dimension with the new one that you've placed. So I guess it's kind of hard to describe. It's better to show it to you, and that's something I will cover here shortly. New features, again, it's kind of broken down into, you know, the whole visual experience, where we're going to be talking about hardware graphics and things that, you know, work with and without that hardware turned on or off, that hardware acceleration, I should say. You know, the coordination, being able to bring in, you know, content from other BIM models, attach those to an AutoCAD drawing, the smart dimensioning, as I mentioned. Another really nice feature here, excuse me, is the SysVar monitor. For anyone who has been using AutoCAD for a long time and has maybe a collection of list routines, auto list routines that they like to use, you know, time and again inside of their AutoCAD drawings, one thing that you've probably, you know, experienced at least on one occasion is where one of those list routines gets broken or is interrupted in the process of being run inside of your AutoCAD drawing, and as a result of that, some of your system variables don't get reset back to what they originally were before you invoke that list routine. So the SysVar monitor will actually monitor your system variables that you predefine, so that when you're working inside of AutoCAD and a list routine, whether you know it's running or not, if it doesn't finish the way it should, or it breaks or stops, or maybe somebody's changed something in your drawing that you worked on, that you're not familiar with, when you open up that file, it's going to let you know that some changes have been made. So again, we'll see that later in the demo portion of the presentation. So again, enhancements, we talked about PDFs. They're going to be smaller, smarter, and more searchable. You're going to be able to use, actually search content within the PDFs that you generate now. Revision clouds. That's, again, if you're a long-time AutoCAD user, you remember when revision clouds weren't even part of AutoCAD. It was part of a bonus tool that eventually became an express tool, which was then incorporated into the core product. But it's been a bit clunky and not the easiest tool to use. Well, that's been greatly improved, and now you can create revision clouds, 3 different types of revision clouds very quickly. And then when it comes time to modifying the clouds, that's another thing that, if you've been using AutoCAD long enough and you've been using revision clouds, probably one of the pet peeves you've had is that revision clouds were difficult to modify once they were placed, and you're just better off erasing the revision cloud and starting new. Well, that's no longer necessary. You can now modify the clouds very easily and not have to, redo the work. And then last but not least on this is the reality computing, which again is allowing you to help, take those point clouds of survey conditions, existing conditions, and incorporate those into your AutoCAD drawing files. This screen is pretty interesting because it does compare the AutoCAD LT, AutoCAD, and then the AutoCAD product that's included with the Design Suite Standard Edition. So for those out there who are, using the bare bones AutoCAD Lite or limited technology LT version, you can see here that you've got a short list of tools that are new in or enhanced in 2016, but you get a much larger list in the full-blown version of AutoCAD, such as the 3D modeling tools, which do not exist in the LT version. Point cloud support is also one of them, as well as the rendering. And then you get into the suites, and most customers that I talk to today they've purchased a suite which includes AutoCAD as well as a number of other tools. One that's on this list that you may not be aware of is AutoCAD Raster Design, which is that raster to vector conversion tools. If you've ever had an old blueprint or a scan drawing that you've had to work with, and you've had the opportunity to use Raster Design to make changes to that file and kind of burn it back into the original scan, you know that it can be a lot of fun working with those files, and so much nicer than trying to just work with something that one of these legacy files that it has not been converted to an electronic version. So that's nice to have in the suite, as well as a number of other tools that do come with the suite. As far as comparing the versions, this is another nice slide where you basically are able to see, what's been added or enhanced between AutoCAD 2016 and 2015, as well as 2014. So, again, I know a lot of people have been using AutoCAD and for many years, and they tend to skip a release or two. They might be on subscription, or the desktop subscription, which is the most economical or the most efficient way to keep up with your products, but they don't always install it. And I'm here to basically tell you that AutoCAD 2016 is one that you should install. It is a great product. It's like I said, more of a fit and finish refinement as far as the version of AutoCAD, what it is today. I'm constantly amazed at what Autodesk is able to do with AutoCAD. Again, I've been using AutoCAD since release 9. It goes all the way back to 1990. Dating myself a bit, but to see where it's come and to have used the program for as long as I have, I'm constantly amazed by the things that they come up with to be able to improve the program and to justify an upgrade or purchasing a new version and actually installing it. I should also remind you, if you're one of those folks who have been using AutoCAD for a while, and when you get the new version, you just you install it and you start using it. like you've always used AutoCAD in the past. You're just kind of using that new version just to stay up and, for file compatibility or what have you. Again, the 2016 version is still running on top of the 2013 file format. So if you have 2016, 15, 14, or 13, they're all using the same DWG file format. So top reasons to buy: document faster, connect more smoothly. There are some connections. I don't know if everybody's got their A360 accounts set up yet, but you'll see inside of AutoCAD once I open it up here that I am signed into my A360 account. And because of that fact, there's going to be some benefits to me as I start working through AutoCAD. Getting started more quickly, communicating ideas, customizing more easily. All these things are good reasons to upgrade to 2016. And then, of course, there's the TrustedDWG technology. Again, I'm not sure how many people out there are actually using competitive products or versions of CAD that produce a DWG format that is not AutoCAD. For a while there were a number of competitors that were making it much more difficult on Autodesk to maintain that trusted capability. But if you watch whenever you open up a drawing, especially one that maybe is coming from an outside source or somebody you're not familiar with or haven't worked with, always take a look at the command line, watch what's going on there, and look for that TrustedDWG tagline that comes up as you're opening a DWG file to let you know that the DWG file that you are opening is in fact created by AutoCAD. So with that, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get out of the PowerPoint here and bring up AutoCAD 2016. And if you use 2015, if you saw last year's presentation, what's new in 2015, or you've been playing around with it, you know that a lot of the fit and finish that had been modified in 2015 incorporated this darker look. I think it is easier on the eyes for those who are using the software over and over throughout the day. It definitely makes it a little bit more pleasing to the eye, but of course you still have the ability to go in and modify the properties of your colors, your model background, your layouts, and so forth. And essentially you can make the version of AutoCAD look the way you want it to look without having to get too excited about it. But so what I'm going to do for starters is I'm going to talk a little bit about the user interface. One of the things you'll notice with 2016 is that the Files tab, or I should say the new tab, Drawing File tab, has been renamed to Start. So this is one of those things that a lot of people tend to turn off right away. They don't appreciate, getting this type of landing screen, and they don't really give it a shot, give it a chance. But, one thing that, is nice to recognize with this landing page is that it does allow you to get to your most recent documents very quickly. That's right here, center stage. You can start a new drawing just by, clicking on the Get Started, Start New Drawing. You can open files. You can open a sheet set, get more templates online, etc. Another nice feature is this notifications over here. So this will let you know if there is a service pack. And a lot of people call us, they're like, how do I know when there's been a service pack released? This is one of the best ways. By having this start window on, you will get these notifications and you'll be told when there is a service pack. The Connect section, again, that's where you can go ahead and create, your A360 account. If I jump over here to Learn and scroll to the left here, you'll also see the What's New videos. So as you're basically trying to get up to speed with 2016, you can take advantage of the What's New videos that are linked here, as well as the Getting Started videos. There's a number of good videos in here to watch, as well as some of the feature videos. Learning tips. My understanding is that the learning tips are updated every 24 hours. So as you're, trying to learn more about AutoCAD, There's a number of tips that will be presented to you that you may not be familiar with. So again, it's one of these areas that you may not realize there is some benefits to having it turned on. So that being said, I'm going to jump over to the Drawing tab, and one of the new features, or one of the new enhancements in 2016 is the ability to create new drawings just by clicking on the plus sign here. So as I go across and create new drawings, I'm getting a different tab for each drawing file. If I wanted to go back to the Start menu very quickly, I can hold the Control Home key, and that'll jump me back to the Start menu. I can also type in the Close All Other system variable at the command line, and that will close all other drawings other than the one that you had current. You can also type in Go to Start. Let's Go to Start. I thought it was Go to Start. It's not popping up, but sure enough, there it is. I don't know if what you see me doing here is basically having that implied, the variable turned on, so that as I start typing a command, it's going to look for commands that meet the criteria. So that's been a feature for some time, but a lot of times what you can do is just start typing in a couple of characters, and it'll start finding the command that you might want to go ahead and launch. So once as far as the opening up the various different drawing files, having multiple drawing files open, there's a lot more ease to it here. Let me go ahead and open up a file here that I can practice or show you some other features. One of the things that you'll see here down on the bottom left-hand side of the status bar is that we have multiple different layouts across the bottom of this drawing file. Now, I personally am not a fan of having tons and tons of layouts in one drawing. There's some reasons for that, but if you were, using, one of those people who are just, one man show, one woman show, and you have a lot of different layouts that you're creating on one drawing file, and you start needing to mix things up, you can actually left-click and move these layouts from the front to the back and to the side just by left-clicking and dragging on the layout tabs that you see here. Okay, so that's a nice little feature. Another thing is the UI. You can customize. How many times have you customized the interface with your toolbars or your tool palettes or what have you, and things got messed up, or they just basically did not stay the way that you wanted them? Well, there is a tool called Lock UI that was added, I believe, one release back or so, and you can lock the UI and basically, make sure that nothing is going to change. But if you do that and you click on the tool here, you can choose which part of the user interface you want to lock. So if you just want to lock your floating toolbars and panels, or the dock toolbars, or the floating windows or docked windows, you can lock any one of these components of the UI once that UI tool is turned on here. And again, it's basically turned on and off by clicking on that custom panel. So it disappears and reappears as I click on that. Another tool that's been added to this customized panel portion of the status bar is the Isolate Objects. So that's another tool that people tend to use a lot, and they want to be able to have access to it. So being able to customize your UI just using this tool right here is a big benefit. So one other thing I want to show you here, if I minimize AutoCAD, or not minimize it, but if I take my AutoCAD and I stretch it, and watch what happens down here in the left-hand corner. Basically, when you resize the interface now, everything along the bottom of the window here is starting to stack. And again, this may not be something that comes into play all the time, but it's just nice to know that as that window is resized, you're not going to lose what you see on the bottom of the screen, and sometimes that can be a real head scratcher when things just go disappearing on you and you don't realize it. Let's see, from the Sheet Set Manager, I'm going to go ahead and open up another file here for ribbon galleries. It's regarding for example, if I go into Insert and click on the Insert tab, notice that there are shortcuts or basically thumbnail icons here that give you a preview of the block that you would insert. This also applies for the text styles, your dimension styles. Click on this again. Your dimension styles and your multi-line styles. So multi-line styles, table styles, all of these different icons or thumbnails that you're seeing are turned on by using the gallery view system variable. So when it's set to 1, you see all the thumbnails. When it's set to 0, you do not. So then it's back to just a list like we had before. And that would also include the blocks. Now, when you don't have that variable turned on, the insert tool will just bring up the standard dialog box that everybody's familiar with seeing. But again, that gallery preview tool or variable, when it's turned on, will give you that preview of the blocks, which might be a better or easier way to be able to pull in blocks that, if you know what it looks like, and that's, you tend to know what it looks like more than the actual name, right? So, being able to choose from the image, I think, is probably going to be easier for people to, enjoy. One other thing here, just double check. Yeah, there's one thing that a lot of people aren't even doing is they're not signing in to their A360 account. So as you can see in the upper right-hand corner here, instead of sign in, I've already signed in, and I do have the ability to sync some of my settings with the cloud, including some of my options, as well as actual drawings can be synced with your cloud account. And when that is done, when you've logged in like this, if I was to go to the help file, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner here that I'm also signed into the online help file, which means that if I happen to, go looking for, a command of some sort, say, these are some pretty obscure commands or whatever, but let's say that this data extraction command is something that I'm interested in. I can come up here and I can click on the like button, and it will remember my my settings, and it will allow me to come back to this command very easily later on. So everything's enabled these days, as far as social media is concerned, and there's a very social media feel to this, obviously, by liking the command or even sharing it, as you can see here. Another thing that's kind of nice is that you have this ability to find something. So I can't tell you how many times I talk to people who say they're not using the new version of the software the way it was intended or designed because they can never find the commands. They're used to their toolbars. They're used to, using the command line and so forth, and that's fine. But this new help file basically means that there's no excuse. Quite frankly. Let me go ahead and search on a tool such as purge. So the purge command, everybody should know what that is, but if you don't, you can click on the find tool, and notice what just happened here. The application menu in the upper left-hand corner opened up, and it shows me with this little animated red arrow where the purge command can be found. And here again, it just makes it that much easier for people to make this transition from the current version of AutoCAD that they're using to the current, to the newest, latest, and greatest, and help them, learn this new way of using the software. If you were to use, if you were to search on a tool that can't be found, for example, it will, basically let you know that it's, behind a window or something of that nature. I will mention, though, that this animated feature does not work if you do not have your hardware acceleration on, and we'll show you that here later. But basically, I want you to know that if your hardware acceleration is turned off and you click on this Find tool, it's not going to give you that little animated arrow that I'm showing you here. So that's just something to be aware of, and one more reason to have a approved video card so that your computer can in fact run all the features and so forth that AutoCAD offers to you. So let's go ahead and move on to dimensioning, or the annotation category that I mentioned earlier. So for example, if I'm in the in this file here, I'm going to go over into model space, and as I mentioned during the PowerPoint, there are ways of using this new dimension tool that will take into consideration any existing dimensions that you have. So if I go up to Annotate and I click on this new dimension tool, one thing to be aware of is that there is now a dim layer override as part of the dimension tool itself. So regardless of what layer, if you have, if your layer properties are set up or whatever, you have a dimension for layer, that's great. But that's not to say that the dimension you place is going to end up on that layer, right? So when you're using the dimension tool, now you have this opportunity to either use the current layer or you can specify a layer. And if you don't have a layer, assigned, basically what you can end up doing is typing this variable for dim layer. Whoops, can't be in the command when I'm doing it. But if I type in dim layer, it'll give me the opportunity to set a new value for the dim layer. So let's say I want my dims to be on the A-dims layer. I'll go ahead and hit enter, and notice that now any new layer that I place is going to be on the A-dims layer regardless. So if I come up here and use this new Smart Dimension tool and just pick on it, it's still going to give me the same options down at the command line that you would expect to see as far as angular, baseline, and so forth. You could specify the the type of dimension you want, or just hover over one of a piece of geometry inside of the model or inside of the drawing file, and it's going to go ahead and give you a suitable dimension for that type of geometry. So I can go ahead and select a couple of linear. If I grab a circle or a radius here, I can choose a radius or circle dimension depending on what it is that I'm trying to dimension. And what's really cool is when we start trying to place dimensions on existing geometry, or I'm sorry, on top of an existing dimension like I'm doing here, it gives me the opportunity to move the existing dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and say move away, and takes that whole string of dimensions and it moves it out of the way so that it makes room for the dimension that I just added. How cool is that? So if I go ahead and continue some more dimensions here, that one's a pretty ugly one. Let me try this again. Select the dimension. This time I'm going to say, break this up. And so what it did is it broke it up, so I have now a continuous string of dimensions. And if I try this one more time, say come up here, snap to that other one, and I'm going to say replace. So there were your three options. You could move the existing dimension, you could break up the existing dimension, or you could completely replace the dimension with the new one that you're placing. And as I said, I think that's one of the nicest features in this new version of AutoCAD. Let's see, one additional one. Oh, let me show one other thing here. If I go ahead and just put in a dimension, and then I decide I want to edit the text. Now, everybody knows you shouldn't edit the text of a dimension when it's a true accurate number, but let's say we wanted to override it with something, obscure or whatever. You know, so if I say, if I start typing, turn on my cap locks, turn on the cap locks, and you can see here that I'm starting to get too much text in this area. There is this little glyph that will allow you to change the width of the text. So you can change the width of the text very quickly and easily, which you could never do before. So that's a nice little feature. And let me double check here. Yeah, let me go ahead and open up this other file. We've got some notes here. One additional wish list item is the ability to be able to put a box or a frame, basically, around text. So if I select that text, you'll notice when I come over here to the properties and I scroll down a little bit that there is this new variable that controls text frame. So I can turn on the text frame and put a box around that piece of text. Very, very easy. So that's it for my annotation. Now I'm going to talk about the new object snap. So, you know, this is one of the few new items. Basically, it's called Geometric Center Object Snap, and you can turn that on basically just typing in GCE. But if I come down here to my object snaps and I come over here, you can see that I have this Geometric Center Object Snap. So if I turn that on, what I can do is I can take a piece of text like this and move this to the center of that triangle. You could not do that before, right? How many times do we end up creating construction lines or some other sort of object or snap, maybe a point or something that we could snap to that would allow us to be able to do something like this? It certainly was not as easy as it is now. If I was to draw a circle around this hexa or the octagon here, and notice that it's finding, if I hit my tab, there we go, geometric center. I'm hitting my tab and it's finding the geometric center of that object as well as, you know, the center. So you can tab through or cycle through object snaps just as you've always been able to do with other object snaps, but having this new object snap I think will be a nice feature. Also, for anybody who does spool sheets for piping or has to create isometrics in any way, there is this new grid that basically adapts to the isometric layout on the fly. So if I was to start a polyline here and snap, you know, start creating a box of some sort, and then I want to switch over to a different plane, switch over to my isoplane right, notice that let me stop the command and click on it again. Didn't like that. Isoplane right, so now I've got the grid is changed. Maybe I'll switch over to the isoplane top. And you can see the grid. It's basically updating as I go and changing the shape or the look of the grid as I'm drawing inside of that isometric layout. So that's another nice feature. Another one, move and copy enhancements. So I'm not sure how this is going to work as far as you know, being tied in with the webinar here, but basically, if you recall, you know, when you have a file like this one here that has a lot of entities in it, and you want to, you know, select a lot of objects and move them or copy them or whatever, you know, a lot of times it'll take a really long time to select those objects. I'm going to go ahead and let's try this a different way. I'm going to go ahead and pick a box here and select all these objects. Again, selecting the objects themselves depends on, you know, how fast it's going to, you know, select those objects is going to depend on how much RAM you have, what kind of hardware acceleration, you know, you're capable of. But if I was to go and move move these objects, notice that once the preview image completely displays, now it is no longer going to flash or jump around as I'm trying to, you know, move from this this view. So, you know, if you zoom out and zoom back in like I just did, obviously there's a little bit of a refresh, but just moving this from one side of a drawing to another, you know, that visual enhancement allows you to see all the objects, you know, from start to finish. Let's see, property preview. I'm going to go ahead and go into my model tab for this one, basically the same file. So what they've done now is when I select geometry, notice how it highlights, and if I come into the properties and I click on color, for example, and say, you know what, I want to see what that's going to look like if everything is yellow. The properties preview basically allows me to see what the changes are going to be before I actually apply them. So that's a pretty nice feature. And then one other thing that kind of works with that is inside of the options. So if I type in OP, I can see options there. Click on options, and in the selection tab, notice that there is a selection effect color. So if I wanted to have all of my objects select when they're selected, if I want all of them to be green, I go ahead and I select objects, and everything turns green to show me, you know, what has been selected. And don't get confused, that has nothing to do with, oops, try that again. Did this to me before, not sure why, but here we go. So it's showing everything is selected as being green, but you know, that's not to be confused with the preview of what would happen if I did change the property. So it kind of overrides that default selection that I had in my options. Let's see, one more file here under, well, it's more than one, but the command preview now shows you what you're going to see before you actually apply a command. So for example, if I want to, you know, come in here and choose the, where is it? I want to choose the blend tool. So what if I wanted to take these arcs here and I wanted to connect them? Oops. Try this again. Oh, you know what? Better be in model space, right? Was that it? Yeah, so it's basically giving you a preview. It's kind of hard to see now in the black background, but let me go back to this page here. What's basically happening is when you select objects and you want to invoke a command and you want to see what's going to happen, the command is going to show you exactly what you're going to get before you do it. So let's say, for example, if I wanted to move these objects, what happens, or what I'm trying to point out, is that you get this ghost image of the original object. So you're not going to lose what was there before. That really, you know, that applies to multiple different commands. So if as I'm making changes here, I can, you know, see what I'm going to get before and after just by having that command preview turned on. Does that make sense? Hopefully you see the difference there. You see the before and the after before you actually accept it. So let me see what else we got here. XREF enhancements. Open up yet another file. This is going to be another one that people are going to love if you're using XREFs, which I hope you are. You know that an XREF is an overlay, or basically another AutoCAD drawing that's been inserted into your drawing as an overlay. You can't modify it. My MEP buddies out there, they all know that, you know, there's a lot of work involved sometimes when you get an update from an architectural file. And basically when you make changes, or when you get an architectural file and you want to be able to make all the background a halftone or something gray, it's a lot of work to go into the XREF and clean it up. So by introducing this new XREF override system variable, you're able to do that very easily. So for example, if I was to open up my layer property, as you can see here, if I expand all my XREF layers, you see that all the different colors in the XREF, are all specific to the host file. So if I type in XREF override, you'll notice that that's set to 0 by default. If I turn that on to 1, and now I go back into my XREF, or my XREF layers, and I select all my XREF layers, and change those to a color that might be more suitable for a background. Notice that the XREF override variable allows me to now see the XREF in the gray format that I want, but if I had it turned off, it'll go back to the host, or I should say, the original file's properties. So that is a really nice one. Let's see, maybe I'll do one more, which again is something I think is going to be very useful to a lot of people. It's the system variable monitor. So for example, what you're going to see down here in the lower right-hand corner, we've got a pop-up that's telling me that this is an Autodesk trusted drawing. And if I go back into the if I type in the system variable monitor, so it's sysvar monitor, go ahead and bring that up. It is already enabled, but it may not be enabled in your installation of AutoCAD 2016, so you'll want to type in, the sysvar monitor, come in here, notify when these system variables change, and then you can enable a balloon notification. So what you see here is a list of default system variables that are very common with, a lot of people who want to have these variables set with a preferred setting. You can change that setting here. You can also edit the list. You can add more or remove from this list. And basically what ends up happening is when you modify something, when something gets modified inside of the drawing or ends up changing the system variable, you're going to get a notification to it. And that's going to help people, figure out, very quickly, what's going on, because how many times do we struggle with these settings that have been changed and we didn't know it. So again, that will be something I think everybody's going to really enjoy.